In Japanese for beginners, we already covered the volitional form of verbs, or the let's do this verb, with polite verbs. And the way you do that is you change it from masu to mashou, and that gives you the let's do this verb version of verbs, but only for polite verbs. Tabemasu becomes tabemashou, ikimasu becomes ikimashou, etc. And now we're going to cover how to do this for the plain version of verbs, not the polite. Thankfully, the conversion rule is a little bit easier than changing verbs to their te or their ta forms, but there are still some different rules that you have to follow depending on if you're dealing with an u verb, a do verb, or an irregular verb. You thought you couldn't escape them, but no! Uru and irregular verbs are here to stay forever, to haunt you in your dreams. So the rule for u verbs is you drop the letter u, that u, not hiragana u, but the letter u, and you change it into o, a long voweled o, hiragana o, and an u after it. So iku becomes ikou, hanasu becomes hanasou, aruku becomes arukou, and yomu becomes yomou. And my cat won't stop screaming outside the door. Maini, if I let you in, you're gonna run around and knock the tripod off the chair. With do verbs, you drop the do and you replace it with yo. Again, a long vowel, a hiragana yo followed by a hiragana u, but it's pronounced o. So taberu becomes tabeyou, miru becomes miyou, and kangaeru becomes kangaeyou, etc. With irregular verbs, as is always the case, you just have to memorize them. There is no rule. So suru becomes shiyou, and kuru becomes koyou. So to use these verbs in sentences, to conjugate them, it's exactly the same grammar rules that you've learned before for verbs in their regular forms. So sushiを食べる, to eat sushi, becomes sushiを食べよう, let's eat sushi. 毎日楽しい夢を見る, have fun dreams every day, becomes 毎日楽しい夢を見よう, let's have fun dreams every day. 一緒に歌う, sing together, becomes 一緒に歌おう, let's sing together. 明日は勉強するよ, tomorrow I'll study, I promise, becomes 明日は勉強しようよ. Like, hey, let's study tomorrow. Here's an example from actually the last video that we did with tada verbs, because it uses volitional and tada, from that Hamasahi Ayumi song, July 1st. Here's the sentence and it's not o verb. 明日晴れたらあの海へ行く. Tomorrow, if it's sunny outside, we will go to that beach, to that ocean, to that seaside. Whereas how it actually is in the song and the lyrics, 明日晴れたらあの海へ行こう. Hey, tomorrow, if it's sunny, let's go to that beach that we like. So now that we know how to convert verbs into their plain volitional form and how to use them in basic sentences, let's start playing with them a little bit. If you add different particles and different little short phrases after verbs in their plain volitional form, you can create some differently nuanced sentences. So the first one we're going to cover is adding particle ka to the end of these verbs. So, もう寝よう. Let's just go to sleep, right? もう寝よっか becomes more of a suggestion. Shall we go to bed already? It's getting late. もう. Shall we go to bed? So if you add particle ka, just like with mashou ka, it gives it a sort of a, hey, well, why don't we do this verb? Or shall we do this verb? sort of vibe to it, rather than let's do this verb. うんこしよう. Let's poop. It becomes うんこしよっか? Like, hey, you want to poop? Hey, like, shall we poop? Sounds like fun. 家へ帰ろう. Let's go home. 家へ帰ろうか? Shall we go home? Hey, want to go home? Another way that we can play with the plain forms of these volitional verbs is to add to omoimasu or to omou to the end of it. So you may remember to omou or to omoimasu means I think that, the thing that came before me. So X to omoimasu would be I think that X. So if you have the volitional form of a verb in plain form followed by to omoimasu or to omou, it becomes a sort of like, I have decided that I'm going to do this verb, or I intend to do this verb. So this is one of those cases where if you think of it too literally, it doesn't really make sense in English. It becomes, I think, let's do this verb. And it's like, that is kind of what it does mean, but we just don't talk like that in actual natural English. So it really is more like, I have decided to do this verb. This is illustrated best with like responses to questions. So here's a little short dialogue exchange. Person A says, このまま無理そうですけど、どうします? So このまま at this rate, 無理そう, remember from the soul lesson earlier? 無理 means impossible. 無理そう would mean it seems like this is impossible. It seems like what you're doing at this rate, you can't keep going. どうします? What do you want to do? What do you want to do about it? And then if person B answers, やめようと思います. It means, I've decided just now I'm going to quit. Now, you wouldn't necessarily translate it that way. You'd pretty much just translate it as, I think I'll quit, or I'm going to quit. You wouldn't be like, I've decided just now to quit, but that's the underlying nuance to this if you're using this o to omoimasu or o to omou. Now, this I've decided to nuance changes ever so slightly if the verb form of omoimasu changes. So if it's to omou or to omoimasu, like in just kind of the plain, straightforward version of that verb, it's I've decided just now to do this. But if it is to omotteru or to omotteimasu, which you may recall is I am thinking, literally, it changes to more like a nuance of, I've been thinking about doing this, or I've decided a while ago that I'm going to do this, I just haven't really done it yet. So here's a dialogue exchange to illustrate that. Person A says, あそこのメイドカフェって面白そうよね. I'm using this so version again for repetition for you guys. So, あそこのメイドカフェ, that maid cafe, over yonder, over there. Te, this small tsu te is like, hey, I'm talking about this thing. I'm putting it in air quotes. That maid cafe over there. Let me tell you about it. What am I going to tell you about it? Omoshiro so, yone. It looks like it would be fun. Right, yone? And then person B answers, いつかは行こうと思ってるの. So, yeah. いつかは Sunday. 行こうと思ってるの. Teru. So this no at the end is the explaining particle. It's like desu. So I'm explaining. Sunday, いつかは行こうと思ってる. I've been thinking that let's go. I've been thinking that I would like to go there. So it's a decision I've made a while ago. Like we've seen this maid cafe like on our way back from Juku. Like every day we'd see the maid cafe and like, you know, a month ago I saw it and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go there someday. I've decided now, you know, that someday I'm going to go there. And then my friend brings it up like a month after I've made this decision. And I say, yeah, I've been meaning to go there. I've been meaning to check it out. I've decided a while ago that I'm going to do it. Haven't followed through yet, but I would like to. いつかは行こうと思ってる. So here's one more example of と思う with a verb. また恋をしようと思う. This is actually from song lyrics from a song by Hisako Aya. It's a little obscure, but anyway, I like it. So it means I've decided, in parentheses, just now to fall in love again. Koi o suru is to love romantically or to fall in love. Koi o shio is let's fall in love romantically. To omou, mata, so mata again. Koi o shio, let's fall in love. To omou. So literally that's, I think, let's fall in love again. But what it really means is more like, I've decided just now that I'm going to try falling in love again, or I'm going to fall in love again. And this distinction, lyrically speaking, is pretty significant because this comes at the very end of the song, and the first, 75% of the song, she's basically lamenting that she lost her love and, what am I going to do now? How am I going to move on? I'm going to cut my hair really short. I'm going to get rid of my high-heeled shoes and replace them with sneakers, and I'm going to see what life holds for me, And she's like, maybe I won't fall in love again. Like, that's a waste of time. But then towards the end of the song, she says, no, mata koi o shiyou to omou. I've decided just now, after all of this singing that I've been doing about how I'm not sure. No, I've decided just now. I'm gonna try to fall in love again. So here's a quick reminder. If these distinctions, if these subtleties are tripping you up, I'm noticing already with Nihongo 2, with this series in general, we're getting into a lot of the more finer subtleties of Japanese, where you don't necessarily need to know these in order to make yourself understood in conversation, but they are gonna help you really communicate the deeper layers of your emotions and your intentions to other people. And then if you understand these rules, when you hear them spoken by other people, it will give them further insight. It will give you further insights to how they're actually feeling and what their motivation is. It gives you a little more subtext and more layers of understanding. But having said that, if this is all tripping you up as a speaker, don't worry if you can't whip out all these grammar rules when you're speaking Japanese to other people. You can still use much simpler Japanese to get your point across. So I'm going to go back to this example of the maid cafe exchange. So if person A said, あそこのメイドカフェって面白そうよね, and if you wanted to express, like, yeah, I've been meaning to go there, I want to go there, but you forgot the whole 行こうと思ってる thing, but you remember 行きたい from earlier lessons, I want to go. You could also just express that sentiment with いつかは行きたい. Yeah, someday I would like to go. Or if you've forgotten ikitai, I mean, you could even just get by saying, いつかは行く. Like, yeah, someday I'm gonna go. You don't even need to say someday I want to go, just someday I'm gonna go. It's very bold, like Japanese speakers don't speak that way, but you're not expected to speak like a natural native Japanese speaker, because you're not. They're just gonna be impressed and happy that you're making an effort anyways. So there are a number of ways of communicating your ideas, and don't get too tripped up on like the correct way or like the perfect way. Just do what you can. So to review the model sentences I went over in this video, I have some timestamps in the video description and in a pinned comment in the comment section below. And also, don't learn all of your Japanese from me. I am but one resource. You should be getting input from several different sources and be learning from several different teachers to get a well-rounded experience. So this week I would like to feature another source for learning Japanese. And this week I'm featuring Practical Japanese Twitter account. Practical Japanese tweets and retweets useful graphics and information about Japanese words and grammar, everything from elementary to advanced. They're a nice way to sneak some studying into your doom scrolling. Thanks for watching, and thank you to all the patrons who support this and other series on this channel. If you want additional study guides and resources, or to support this particular series continuation, consider going to my Patreon and joining at the $2 or more level. And I hope to see you next week when we cover te-oku versions of verbs. Yes, more verb conjugations. 頑張ってね!